Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. Prime Minister Honorable Roosevelt Scarrett, Honorable Dennis Charles, who has joined us, Mr. Itoma James, Acting Senior Met Officer, Mr. Fitzroy Pascal, National Disaster Coordinator. Let me also welcome Mr. Glenroy Toussaint, the Local Government Commissioner and Chair of NEPO's Shelter Subcommittee, who is here with us, as well as the Cabinet Secretary, Ms. Prevost, and the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry, or rather in the Office of the Prime Minister, Mrs. Missy Henderson. And of course, to all our media representatives here with us this morning, good morning and welcome. As usual, we will hear first from the Honorable Prime Minister, and Mr. James and Mr. Pascal will provide updates on the approaching weather system. Please welcome the Honorable Prime Minister.
Morning, everybody. I hope you're having a very good morning, notwithstanding the impending weather system. I was fortunate to have hosted a number of school children today on a farm tour. So it's a wonderful experience to start today. I want to thank all of you for coming, the press, and to greet those of you who are present, Minister Charles and others, and the listening and viewing public. And of course, this no doubt is an opportune time for us to convene as Dominica continues to monitor the progress of Tropical Storm Brett, which is approaching our islands. We will hear shortly from our weather and disaster preparedness officials on the progress of the storm and the actions being taken in preparation for any possible impact. Just to say that I shall chair a meeting of the National Emergency Planning Organization today at 5 p.m. But first, I wanted to take a moment to sympathize with the several families in our nation who are still coming to terms with the sudden and devastating loss of a loved one. My prayers are with the Dorrival family of Mondanium, who lost their 2-year-old son due to a drowning incident on the weekend. We know that losing a child is one of the most heart-rending, devastating experiences that anyone can endure. I wish them strength and the comfort of God's loving embrace during this very difficult time. On behalf of the government of Dominica, I also extend condolences to the families of the young men who succumbed to injury over the past few days, either due to a motor vehicle accident or other unfortunate events. We share in your grief and pray for comfort, fortitude, and endurance during this difficult period of loss. I wish also to update the media and the public that, as indicated via a circular issued on Friday, I have received the final report from Sir Dennis Byron following the review of Dominica's electoral system. Sir Dennis, a renowned and respected Caribbean jurist, was engaged by the government of Dominica in 2020 to review Dominica's electoral processes and make recommendations for reform and modernization. The final report was received on Monday, June 12, 2023, and phase 2 consists of the draft House of Assembly Elections Bill 2023, the draft House of Assembly Electors Regulations 2023, the draft House of Assembly Election Petition Rules 2023, the draft Electoral Commission Bill 2023. The Government of Dominica wishes to place on record its thanks to Sir Dennis Byron for his comprehensive review of the electoral systems and corresponding laws, as well as the preparation of draft legislation to guide the way forward on electoral reform in Dominica. I always said the Dominican public would be engaged on the contents of the report and given the opportunity to provide feedback and make recommendations on how we should proceed. It is my hope that the consultations will be held in the quickest possible time so that we can go to the Parliament as soon as is feasible to give effect to the proposed changes and updates to our electoral process. The Government of Dominica is fully committed to bringing the matter of electoral reform to its final conclusion by passing the necessary legislation and ensuring that our elections are held as they have been in the past in a fair and transparent manner. Later today at 3 p.m. via all media, you will hear more from me on this matter as we meet various stakeholders to share the results of Sir Dennis's review. I want to also comment on this matter with regards to the integrity in public office matter. As you know, I am not in the habit of commenting on matters before the courts, especially in this instance when the complaint was brought against the Integrity Commission and not against me as Roosevelt Skerrit, Prime Minister. However, the facts are clear. In the interest of transparency, I declared the asset to the Integrity Commission in 2021, whose members, in their wisdom, determined that it could remain in my possession. This is what the Integrity Commission said to me by letter dated February 17, 2021, and I shall read its contents. It says, following upon a Section 35 inquiry held on February 12, 2021, into the acceptance of a gift on January 8, 2021, and which you formally reported to the Commission on January 12, 2021, the Commission has decided as follows. Having due regard to Section 35(4)(b) of the Act, in light of the fact that the gift was not trivial, but was apparently not intended to be a motive or reward for doing or abstaining from any of your official functions, you are directed to retain the gift. The Commission has asked me to thank you for complying with the legislation in that regard and for submitting the requisite information to facilitate the inquiry. I write as directed by the Commission. Sincerely, Helen Ambo, Secretary to the Commission. And so it is clear that I have complied with the law, and the Commission, in its wisdom, has determined that and wrote to me. So I find it extremely strange that the matter is before the courts. And let's put this into context. You have a Court of Appeal of 3 judges sitting. It is everybody who agrees on a judgment. A judge can dissent, but the majority carries. A judge who sits on the Court of Appeal, even if he doesn't agree with the majority decision, cannot ask for judicial review. Cannot ask for judicial review. And the law provides for a majority vote. So it is clear that there are other machinations other than the rule of law that has motivated a member to take this matter before the courts and so forth. But the courts will decide on this. As I mentioned earlier, we are monitoring the progress of Tropical Storm Brett, which is approaching the Lesser Antilles. We continue to stress the importance of early preparation, and I trust that citizens have put all systems in place to ride out the effects of severe weather if we were to be affected. I've invited Mr. Itoma James, the Acting Senior Met Officer, and Mr. Fitzroy Pascal, National Disaster Coordinator, to provide an update. And I want to say to us that it is absolutely, absolutely important for us not to take this approaching storm for granted. It is better that we are fully prepared and nothing happens than to be ill prepared and something happens. We do not have to go back in history to understand and appreciate how what a tropical storm can do in our countries and what a trough can do in our country. And therefore, it is incumbent on each of us, each family, each community, each business place, each facility to prepare yourself for the storm. And so that we are better safe than sorry. From the government standpoint, from the national standpoint, we are leaving no stones unturned in our preparation actions. We have ignited our mechanisms. They are being cross-checked and double-checked in all instances. And this afternoon, I shall receive an updated report, they do provide me on every 3 hours a report. But today I'll be getting a more comprehensive report on where we are, so we could check every base to ensure that we're prepared from a national standpoint. But the government can do all of what it has to do. If each of us as individuals and communities do not play our part, then we will not be as secured as we should, because it requires every one of us to play our part in our preparation for this storm. Certainly for me, I am not taking this storm lightly at all. I continue to pray to the Lord that it will die out, but you have to pray, but you also have to be prepared and not be like a foolish virgin. So ensure that you have not only oil in a lamp, but sufficient in the event that you use up what is in the lamp. And I know Carla, as a aspiring deacon in the Catholic Church, will understand what I'm talking about. But thank you, and I pass it to the press secretary.
Thank you, Prime Minister. So we will now invite Mr. Itoma James. He is the acting senior Met officer, and he will provide an update on the latest progression of Tropical Storm Brett. Mr. James.
Good morning. Let me first start by acknowledging the presence of the Honorable Prime Minister and our other distinguished guests, and say thanks to the press for being here and taking interest in what we have to say when it comes to tropical storms and matters of weather. So firstly, I will start by saying that as of 5 p.m. yesterday, Dominica was placed under a tropical storm watch, and as of this morning, the watch continues. So, as it relates to the location of Tropical Storm Brett was located about 12.9 north and 52 degrees west, or about 553 miles east-southeast of Dominica. Brett, as it relates to yesterday, has slowed a bit in its forward trajectory, but continues to move slightly north of west towards Dominica, well, towards the Windward Islands to be exact. On its current path, it will pass just about 90 miles south of Dominica, that is between St. Lucia and Martinique. That is the center of the storm. Taking into consideration the different errors that may occur in trajectory from the National Hurricane Center, there is about a 60 miles in error. So we can still expect the storm to be passing near to or about, or give us impacts as it passes across the Windward Islands. With that in mind, the tropical storm force winds is possible, so we are keeping the watch in place. Additionally, we can expect extreme rainfall events with rainfall totals of about 4 to 6 inches, and could be higher in higher elevations. So there is a possibility of flooding, a high possibility of flooding, widespread flooding across Dominica. And we expect people to take the necessary precautions, because if things continue and we may drop a tropical storm watch, it may be needed to issue a flood watch or warning, and these can be as devastating as the winds from the tropical storm. As we can see, we are very prone to flooding and landslides. These cause a lot of damage also and can be life-threatening. So not because, or in the case that the tropical watch is dropped, it doesn't mean that we should drop our guard. We still need to monitor the progress of the system. Additionally, our fisher folks should also start to take precaution if they haven't already, because increase in sea swells and wave heights can also cause damages to their life and property, so they should take the necessary precautions. And with any updates, the next update should be at about 11, but to be more exact, the Hurricane Hunter is expected to investigate the system at about 2 p.m. this afternoon, and with that update we should be able to tell you more precisely what the size and intensity of the system is as it gets closer to Dominica. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. James. You'll have the opportunity if you need any further clarification later. But we'd like to invite Mr. Fitzroy Pascal. He's the National Disaster Coordinator, and he will now address the media. Please welcome Mr. Pascal.
Good morning to all. Thank you, Dion, and allow me to recognize the presence of the Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Minister for Tourism, CAPSEC, Ms. Prevost, PS Ms. Henderson, Local Government Chair, Local Government Commissioner, and all the other senior government officials, Mr. Darrell Teat, and the media, the listening and the viewing public. Good morning. The Office of Disaster Management continues to coordinate the implementation of disaster risk reduction activities and efforts of the National Emergency Planning Organization stakeholders, or NEPO stakeholders, as it relates to the impending inclement weather, Tropical Storm Brett. The NEOC, the National Emergency Operations Center in Jimit, is operational and equipped with alternate water, electricity, and communications systems. Personnel of the NEOC, the National Emergency Operations Center, is on high alert. They have been placed on high alert, and they are partially activated. And the Honorable Prime Minister mentioned that this afternoon at 5 p.m. there will be a meeting of the NEPO. So after that, I think we will go into full activation. Meetings have been held in the past with all the subcommittee chairs. Mr. Tousse can attest to that, on a monthly basis. And more recently, the Deputy Chair, Honorable Reuben Blackmore, the Minister for National Security and Legal Affairs, did convene a meeting of the NEPO stakeholders, special in attendance. The ODM is in contact with CDMA, the regional security system also, all the partners, both locally, regionally, and internationally. Up to last night, we had an operation with the Barbados Coast Guard, the Barbados Trident here in Dominica. The ODM wishes to reiterate, and the Honorable Prime Minister did make mention of it, that every citizen should adopt preparedness as a lifestyle. The national system is in a state of readiness, but we are imploring that the citizenry also should ensure that all their preparation activities should have been completed by this time of the year. I know we like to wait for June 1st to November 30th to think of preparation, but we're trying to tell the populace that they must adopt preparedness as a lifestyle. They want them to know their risk, know what your risks are. If you live in a vulnerable area in terms of waterways, you should ensure that you have your evacuation plan ready to move to secure grounds. You should also have your communication plan so that your family does not get disjointed after the impact of a system. And also have your emergency kit, the Go Kit, with 72 hours of supplies when coming to the shelter. I think that's it, and I'll await any questions after. Thank you very much.
The Go Kit. What's the Go Kit?
The Go Kit is your emergency kit. It should have non-perishable food items in it for 72 hours. Ensure that you have water. Ensure that you have medication, especially for the elderly folks and the senior citizens and the persons who have medical issues. They should have their medication. You should have batteries, upper battery operated flashlights, battery operated radios, ensure that you have some cash at hand, and yeah, the list can go on and on. But you should have your personal item, your basic supplies. You should not come, if at all the shelters are activated, you should not come to the shelters with your hands swinging.
You may pose questions to Mr. James and Mr. Pascal as concerns the weather system. However, you're also welcome to pose your questions to the Honorable Prime Minister, any matter you may wish to bring to his attention. And I see Carlisle is eager to get started. From Nature Isle News, Mr. John Baptist.
Why you're heavy man this morning? We'll get to the weather in a little while, but you know, as I'm moving across the place, I get a few questions from people. A resident of Granby wants to know, PM, what is the status as it relates to the Loubier-Granby Road? Where are we? And a lot has been said about that. So that will be for the residents from Granby. We almost in the month of, ending the month of June. You did promise us an update as it relates to the meeting the opposition leader with the issue of the president. So you may want to give us an update about that. And also this very, very controversial issue as it relates to the paragraph of pay bush. A lot is being said about that. You may know or you may not know, but if you do know, can you give us an update as to what you know, and you know, because it's becoming a very, very troublesome matter at this time. I'll come back for round 2 or 3, you know, right?
Thank you. With regards to the Loubier-Granby Bacatil Road, as you know, this project is being financed with funds from the government of the United Kingdom by way of a grant. And part of it also a loan by the government of Dominica from the Caribbean Development Bank. We went to tender first time, and the bids came back way higher than the funds that are available. We decided to split the project into 2 lots, lot 1 and lot 2. The bids came back again way higher than the funds that we have. I have since taken a decision in respect to additional funds, and we have gotten the approval of the Caribbean Development Bank to go a particular route with the hope that the bids will come back at a rate that we can afford. Part of the reason, one of the reasons why the bids are coming back so high, as far as I've been advised, is based on the designs of the road. The roads have been and the bridges have been exceptionally designed, and the engineers, I have very great confidence in the British engineers, based on our own experiences there with engineers in the British engineers in the past. So what we have done, we've also gotten Mr. Kendall Johnson, who is one of the most experienced engineers in the country, to review the bid documents and also the designs. And I believe we are close to finalizing an approach which we believe will achieve our desired objective of bringing the cost down to certainly not, it will be more than what we have, and we will be prepared to borrow an additional sum to do this road. But in the next couple of weeks or so, I believe all of those administrative negotiations processes could come to an end, and we can go to the step of issuing a contract and to commence works and so forth. But this is the reasons why we have not started, and we could have started since 2021, for example. But we have had to go back, and you know, we have to go back for the whole processes and so forth. But it is a road that remains a priority for us, and we have some funds. We have had to reallocate funds from another project so that we can increase how much we have at our disposal to effect the granting of a contract and commencing construction on the road. All things considered, if we're to get the negotiations down to the sum that we believe we can afford, we can see work started in the next couple of months or so. Okay. In respect to the consultation on the nominee for the office of president or president of Dominica, the Prime Minister still has time, as per the Constitution, and at the appropriate time, I will consult the leader of the position as is mandated by the provisions of the Constitution. In respect to the matter that is in the public domain, with regards to the Member of Parliament for Peebush, this is a matter that information is still being sought and put together, so I'm not in a position to give any definitive statement on that matter. Thank you.
Jamasha Mello, DBS News.
Good morning. Mr. Pascal, in light of the impending alert system, by any chance will the public be receiving an updated shelter list? And Mr. Prime Minister, CARICOM has announced a national holiday for July 4th for all member states. Will Dominica be observing this holiday, as well as the bus fare list was revised many months ago? However, there is some uncertainty as to the prices for children. Can you give clarification on that, please?
That's your first question. We have with us the Shelter Committee Chair attached to NIPO, Mr. Glenroy Touset, and he will speak directly to preparedness in terms of shelter capacity.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me say a very pleasant morning to the Honorable Prime Minister and other members of the head table, Honorable Dennis Charles, Cabinet Secretary, and of course the Permanent Secretary in the Prime Minister's Office. Just to inform the general public that we have updated and published the official list of emergency shelters for 2023. That comprised of 101 emergency shelters. Of course, the shelter capacity in Dominica has been severely boosted by the emergence of the 2 regional emergency shelters in Jimmet with a capacity of 500, which would cover the catchment area from Canefield to Taru, including Layu Sultan. And of course, Cassibrus has a capacity of 300 that would cover the areas Cassibrus, Good Hope, Deepa, Tranto, Petit Soufriere, San Sauvé. And of course, we are all aware of the vulnerability of the areas just mentioned, particularly in the east. And of course, the shelter teams, I'm just advising and providing information to the general public. There's been, in fact, all shelter management personnel have been placed on alert, on high alert, for the possible activation of our shelters. And of course, we are extremely grateful for all our shelter teams. I must also mention the Layu regional emergency shelter as well, that would cover areas from St. Joseph back to Mayro. And so that as well has helped us. And I did mention the vulnerability of the areas in the east, the San Sauvé, the Petit Soufriere, and Good Hope. The intention is for all of those individuals to be moved to the regional emergency shelter in Cassibrus. The thing is, in preparation for this sort of movement, last week Friday we had a tabletop exercise to evaluate and to look at the mechanism for which we in fact move people from those areas to the regional emergency shelter. And that was an excellent exercise, involved key stakeholders, the police, fire, the residents of the various communities, the disaster management committees from the various communities, and that worked very well. In fact, just last evening, the shelter team met with similar representatives from the various communities, and if the need arises, we will quickly move into transporting, evacuating persons from those communities to our regional emergency shelters and our shelters in general. As I said, we have placed all shelter teams on alert for the possible activation of our emergency shelters in Dominica.
And where can persons access these lists?
It's on the government website, www.dominica.gov.dm. Of course, also at GIS. And of course, we will be continuing to post and to inform the communities, because it's critical that the information is disseminated to the communities. We have to look at all avenues, because people are not so much savvy in terms of, so we have to look at the elderly and ensure that information is provided to them at the community level so that they can be so informed.
At what point will the shelters be officially opened?
Well, as the Prime Minister indicated, there is a meeting at 5, and of course the whole mechanism will be evaluated, and if needs be, an announcement will be made early enough for the activation of our emergency shelters. At this time, we cannot say when, but certainly there's a meeting, and at that meeting, an evaluation will be made based on all the conditions, and if needs be, the shelters will be activated.
Thank you.
Regards to the decision by CARICOM to declare July 4th as a national holiday to mark the 50th anniversary of CARICOM. We have not in Dominica taken a decision. It is left to individual countries to make a determination. So it was not an imposition by CARICOM on member states. There are a couple of member states who have made a declaration. I will say that it is very unlikely that that decision will be made in Dominica as well. Public holidays bring with them a certain cost, especially to small businesses, because once you have a public holiday, you must be paid, but the employer is making no money on that day. And with all of the challenges that we have, I'm not settled. I'm unsettled in my mind about taking the matter to the cabinet and seeking cabinet's approval on this at this time. But if we are to give consideration to it, I would like for us to have consultations with the private sector entities before to get their feedback on this. From the government standpoint, it's easy to do. But from the private sector standpoint, it can pose a challenge to them. In respect to the bus fares, I'm not sure whether this has been posted in the government website. If not, we should post this in the government website so that the public can have unfettered access to it and easy access to it. But in respect to children, I believe the bus fares for children is 50% of the adults' fares in all instances. Okay, but I'm directing that the fares be posted so that everybody could have access to it and be informed of it. Okay, thank you.
I think we have a question from Matthias Pelte Jr. of Q95.
Thank you. Yes, yes. Okay. Mark Thursday, Q95. Mr. PM, I know you're about to present this electoral reform, the final document, to the media, the various stakeholders. I'm sure, without doubt, that you have reviewed that document, sir. Any concerns that you will express or any questions you have as it relates to that document? And secondly, I've been doing some reading as it relates to a report coming from the EU as it relates to regional training with the RSS. Can you provide an update on that, please?
What training?
EU, European Union.
For which training?
Training with the RSS, for the RSS.
Oh, here,
Yeah.
Oh, here in Dominica.
Well, it's original. We've seen the document signed by Barbados and St. Lucia. I'm not sure whether you have any information on that.
With regards to the report from Sir Dennis Byron, I'm reading the documents as it has been sent to me, and it's my duty to read. I do not wish to share my views at this stage with the public because I do not want to appear to be imposing my views on the consultation processes. I've always indicated that once I receive the reports from Sir Dennis Byron, that those reports will be made available to the public. The reports were received on June 12th, and 2 days later I gave directions that we host this function where we could hand over the copies to the various stakeholder organizations, including political parties, church organizations, NGOs, civil society, unions, etc. And this will be done today at 3 p.m. Following which we will determine a schedule of consultations. And it's my hope that those consultations will begin the week of July 15, taking into consideration my own travels to CARICOM and also budget preparation, etc. And so the hope is that we will commence consultation with July 15 and to take the necessary bills to the Parliament as soon as the consultation process is over. What I wish to urge the country sincerely about is that we need to engage ourselves with a higher sense of maturity. Because this is a matter which we all have said needs to be done. We engage an independent arbiter, recognizing that we could not find common ground among and between ourselves. And this independent arbiter commissioner has submitted his report. I believe it is incumbent on organizations and institutions and citizens to read the report and not say what somebody said, but to read the report and reference the report so that we can engage ourselves on a document that's before us and to see what elements of the recommendations we are comfortable with as a country, so that we can advise the Parliament on these are the elements that we're comfortable with, these are the elements we should proceed with, and give the authority to the Electoral Commission to implement that which Parliament would have approved on the advice of the people of Dominica. I would caution us against comments that I've been hearing in the public domain about discarding the report even before people have read it. You cannot discard a document that you have not read. You understand? And let us show the world that we don't only unite when there's a natural disaster, that we can be united on this fundamental issue of the modernization of the electoral processes in Dominica. We are prepared to engage stakeholders. As you know, I appointed Dr. Kenneth Darut, who will coordinate the consultation along with the Office of the Attorney General and the Office of the Prime Minister, and we will engage in a transparent way. But I don't think it is fair for me to share my position on any of the recommendations to Sir Dennis until the rest of the country has received the document, stakeholders have received documents, and they've read it, so that we can have a conversation on the document and not an emotive one, not one that is steep in emotion or otherwise, and so forth. In respect to the training, there is a training that's taken place by the Barbados Defense Force. we received, that is, the Minister for National Security received a request from the authorities in Barbados seeking our approval to allow them to come into Dominica to conduct training of the Barbados Defense Force, recognizing the objectives of their training and the terrain we have, which complements the objective of the terrain, recognizing that Barbados is a very flat country, and they want to subject their members of the Defense Force to more rigorous terrain, the hills and the valleys, and I do hope that they can. I'm very confident, recognizing that they were here for the hurricane, after the hurricane, that they will survive the physical fitness that's required to traverse the hills and valleys and mountains of Dominica. So there's no RSS presence in Dominica, as I'm hearing, none at all. This is Barbados Defense Force training that has been conducted by Barbados Defense Force, and it is not even in collaboration with the Dominica Police Force. So they're doing their own independent training. They're not here on invitation of the government of Dominica. They're here on a request from the Barbados authorities to allow their officers to be here to take advantage of the terrain that we have for the training. So there's no RSS in Dominica, as being said, and so that is these are the facts of the matter. Any follow-up to that? No?
Can I ask a question?
Okay, please.
Good morning, Mr. Prime Minister. Jemima Wilson Chronicle.
Sure.
A few months back, you informed the press that there would be a dispatch of representatives to check upon our pirates, which was sent to a facility in Germany in March of 2018. Can we get an update on that?
We have not been dispatched yet. We are in touch with the entity which has the pirates, and at the appropriate time, a delegation will be sent to examine those pirates. So it hasn't been done, but we're in touch with them, and they're aware of our intention to come in to check with the pirates. And as I've indicated, it is an important collaboration because of the challenges which the pirates have had for many years. And Dominica is not the only place where this is happening. There are other countries in the Caribbean with national bird that they allow research to be done. And in the event that those birds are not being treated the way that we believe they will be treated, and then we will instruct that they be returned to Dominica to be under the care and protection of the government of Dominica. But it's an important collaboration that we should encourage, but we have to be very mindful of the distinct place that the parrot has in Dominica as our national protected bird. And so in due time we will have the delegation going to Germany to look at the birds, at the parrots. Yes, sir.
There's the old adage, PM, justice delayed is justice denied. Just recently, we saw a situation where someone who was involved in some murder was basically set free based on 16 years. And I'm just paraphrasing so as to get to my question. We had a magistrate in Portsmouth for about 10 years. Portsmouth is now without a magistrate. It now means that if you have to get another magistrate, there are many matters that this very magistrate would have started and must be started all over, brand new. Justice delayed, justice denied. I want to find out what are the reasons why this sitting magistrate contract was not renewed, and what are the plans put in place to have a sitting magistrate in Portsmouth, given the situation where people are clamoring for justice in the country.
Well, the government that's to say, the executive don't deal with the where magistrates are posted. It is the obligation of the government to ensure that we have adequate magistrates to hear cases in Dominica. So we provide the chief magistrate with magistrates, and it is the chief magistrate who will have her roster, and it is she who will determine where magistrates are posted. And so in the past, when we were short of magistrates, we engaged practicing lawyers. In the case of deceased Bruni, who was very helpful to the state, who did 2 days a week and who went to various parts of the country to hear cases. We have employed lay magistrates, for example, former police officers, to sit in to hear cases in an effort to advance in the dispensation of justice. Now, the issue of inadequacy of magistrates is a regional problem. If you go to every single Caribbean country, you will hear this. Even the Chief Justice, for example, is having difficulty in recruiting justices, to the point where we are now extending the engagement of retired justices, both on the Court of Appeal and on the High Court, because because of the salaries that you're paying magistrates and justices and judges. Somebody in private practice who, by one action, may make a judge's whole year salary, just in one case. And so you have difficulty in getting lawyers, attorneys to leave their private practice and come into the public service. And as the Chief Justice is saying, those who sometimes want to make themselves available, they're already 58, 60 years. The retirement of judges is 62 years. In Dominica is a bit higher because we increased the age in Dominica, but across the Supreme Court jurisdiction, it is 62 years. We just had a meeting in St. Kitts, the OACS authority, and this is a matter that we discussed, the idea of even bringing up the judges' retirement age to 70, as is the case in many other jurisdictions. In the United States, it is until death. So, and this is because you recognize that it'll be difficult to get judges, and the longer judges on the bench is more experience he or she gets, and therefore judgments can be closer to being accurate. You see, so it's original stuff. There's a recommendation on the table, and we've already advanced in Dominica to allow the magistracy to fall under the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, so that you could get magistrates to be from St. Vincent to be located in Dominica to your cases, and from St. Lucia to go to St. Kitts, because it would be the similar manner in which they will be managed as far as judges are being appointed and assigned to certain jurisdictions. In respect to the magistrate that you're referencing who was assigned to Portsmouth, I will need to get the facts. I mean, sometimes you get a contract and it takes a couple of months, even more, before we can get the people to come to Cabinet for Cabinet's approval. And there are times papers come for contract and you have to do it retroactively because the people have been engaged since April, but we're in June. So you have a lot of lapses, and this is something I will follow up on, and to be in a position to maybe answer your question in respect to a particular magistrate and his re-engagement on contract as a magistrate and so forth. But in respect to judges and magistrates and the assignment of duties, it's a matter for the chief magistrate to engage on.
I PMI, and I fully understand where you're heading, and you answered this part of the question. But the situation now remains, yes, the chief magistrate is the one who assigns, we have that, but Portsmouth is without a magistrate, and also you dealt with a question that I was about to ask, really delay or the long delay in terms of the contracts of magistrate, because there's a magistrate who's sitting, and when he went on leave sometime in September last year, his contract was not renewed until December.
That's what they do too. So sometimes you have these administrative lapses, so this could quite possibly be one of them. And I said, we'll have to get the facts of this matter. I am not disagreeing with you, I agree with you. So we're not on any disagreement. I am just seeking to give further clarification to your concern. But we understand that.
Because I asked the Attorney General, he told me that is not in his domain. It's under the Ministry of National Security.
Yeah.
Because this continues, and I mean, when you go down to Portsmouth now, those matters there, they have to be adjourned at the end.
But what I'm saying, I mean, we can have a conversation further, but what I'm saying that what if the magistrate was on sick leave? What would happen? I'm saying administratively, we can those who are responsible for assigning magistrates to districts can work out a situation where if a magistrate is assigned to Granby or to Portsmouth or to Rose or to St. Joe or to Castle Bruce or to Marigold, we can have that person rotated and spend a day each to hear particular matters. That's why, I mean, I'm making a general statement, not speaking about any particular case or cases that are before the magistrates. I'm making a general statement, so I don't want people to misunderstand what I'm saying or to think that I'm setting aside what you say. But all I'm saying is that there are, in the meantime, that there can be administrative actions taken to fill the gap while the ministry is dealing with the re-engagement or the engagement of a magistrate who will be an ex-magistrate who will be assigned to Portsmouth. But with the pool that you have and the schedule of cases that these magistrates have, you can move people around so that everywhere is served, during the course of the week. And that's what I'm saying. But I accept your point, the concern that you've raised, that Portsmouth needs absolutely a full-time magistrate to be assigned to it, which is always the case. There has been a lapse for a couple of months. So I don't want anybody to get the impression that we have not had a magistrate in Portsmouth for several months and years. It is really just a few weeks. You see what I'm saying? Really just a few weeks that we've not had a magistrate assigned to Portsmouth. That's it. Thank you. But just, I want to thank you, seeing that you've exhausted your questions. Thank you for being here again. All of us are preoccupied with the approaching weather system. Again, I want to urge us, Mr. Pascal has advised us on the kit that we could have. What do you call it? The Go kit. Yeah, so it means that it is packed, you can run with it, you can go with it, especially if you have to go to a shelter. But it's important for us to check our windows. If you know that you have a window that's leaking and you might need a little putty or a little sealant, go to one of the business places, get it now. Do not wait for tomorrow. Get all your containers filled with water. Do not say I will wait for tomorrow, because tomorrow may be too late, as we saw with Maria in many instances. Your animals, get them in safe places. Your boats, as we've indicated. Do not go because you see some birds out there at sea. You figure there's some fish out there. You want to do the last set of fishing and so on. No, you get it'll be there tomorrow. I give you assurance and so on. So let us do what we have to do. Business places, let us check government system, government documents, and everything. We've mandated the public servants to look at this and to ensure that we can put these things in safe places. We are checking all of the health centers and the hospitals, ensuring that things are in place, that the hospitals and health centers have the medication that they need for emergency purposes. Heavy equipment operators have been contacted and will be deployed at the appropriate time to strategic locations. DOASCO is ensuring that at the earliest opportunity to shut down the system so that the water in the tanks that have been treated, we can have access to it immediately after the storm. So the number of things that the government, the state agencies are doing, but it's incumbent upon each of us, as I said, to play our part and to play it now. And let us reach out to the senior citizen who lives next to us. you know, she may need a couple containers of water, etc., and she may need somebody to help her to go shopping. So all of these things we're doing. Since May, we have directed the NEP to focus more on cleaning the drains, on blocking the drains, on blocking the culverts in the villages. But we don't have to wait only on the NEP to do so. Some of us may have drains at our backyards or along our properties, which have been flooded because of obstructions in the path of the water. You know, it might just be an old fridge that somebody threw along. Let's take it off. Let's spend some time doing the little things and preparing ourselves for any eventuality. Better be safe than sorry. If we plan properly, it will mitigate the impact on us individually, and we'll be in a better position to respond after the storm.
Yeah.
Please, Matt.
Yeah, let me ask
Sure.
you a quick question. As it relates to the vendors on the bayfront, I know some meeting took place privately at Fortune Hotel some weeks ago. What can you tell us as it relates to the vendors in the bayfront? What's the latest plan?
Yeah, well, we had a very constructive and engaging meeting with the vendors. I was very pleased with their level of maturity. You know, sometimes when you read things on social media, people make it look like it is theatrical. You know, it's a lot of sensation. But when we sit down with people, stakeholders, and we discuss the issues, it is done with mutual respect. It is done in mutual understanding. It is done in a manner that can achieve desired objectives and goals and satisfy the concerns and the aspirations and the worries of all the stakeholders. So we have very constructive engagement on this. And so what we have done with them jointly is that the number of actions we've taken. One, we set up a joint team because I wanted to ensure that every action that the government intends to take through the Ministry of Tourism, that the stakeholders are part of it and not hearing it by a press release or not hearing it through innuendo or conjecture. And so there's a joint team made up of vendors, the port, DASPA, the mayor, and one other councillor, and the Ministry of Tourism, and so forth. So you have all of the stakeholders part of this to arrive at a joint conclusion. So we've all agreed that the bayfront is unsightly, and something needs to be done in the short term, and something needs to be done in the long term. So at that meeting, we start to focus on what needs to be done in the short term, in the immediate. And so what we'll be doing is that we'll be helping the vendors replace all of these tents and structures they have. And the government will procure tents that they have advised us would be appropriate for them. And the Ministry of Tourism believes, based on discussions with stakeholders, it will be appropriate, be uniformed, it will be neatly placed, and so forth. And they've also agreed that they cannot occupy the entire bayfront all the way down to the ferry terminal, that a section of the bayfront will be used so that we allow the rest of the bayfront to be used by families who normally come and have an ice cream and sit down and socialize, as has always been the case. And of course the long term is to build permanent vending structures with the appropriate supporting systems to the vendors. Because let's face it, vending is an important part of the tourism product. You understand? Important part of the tourism product. And they play an important role, and it's an important source of employment for many people, especially women across Dominica. And we appreciate them very much. And so no action is going to be taken by this government that will deny these people of an opportunity to survive and to make a living. But we all recognize, including the vendors, that we need to up this stuff. I've even offered them to provide them with uniforms so that they all dress nicely. And they will help design the uniforms, and we will procure the uniforms on their behalf, so that, because they are ambassadors of Dominica. These are the first people that the tourists meet. And so they must present themselves truly representing Dominica and what Dominica has to offer. And so we'll be providing them with support. And so even with regards to the whole idea of how do they display the items, we'll be providing them with some mechanism where they could hang the shirts and they could hang the jewelry, the earrings, so that you use less space and it is more attractive to the discerning eyes to be able to pick up the earrings and the jewelry that you normally sell. So all of these things we're going to be helping them with. But clearly we all agreed that the place is unsightly. If all of the little pieces of tarpaulin from all parts of the country tied. But they have had to do so because, they have to do so. DASPA, the Ministry of Tourism, built them some little wooden structures. I would have designed them a little differently, I mean, I think the designs did not take into the functionality. That's why sometimes people draw structures, but they don't look at the functionality of it. You see what I'm saying? So when you draw, when you do a floor plan, Daryl will know that better than me. You have to look at the functionality of it. How are you going to be moving in that space? And so they did not take into consideration where am I going to stand when I have everything inside this building, and how can a tourist go into that small building, and how many tourists can go at any given time. So I really believe that these wooden structures may find a better resting place somewhere else other than the bayfront. It was all an effort by the Ministry of Tourism, all fairness to them, in an effort to improve the aesthetics of the bayfront. But in respect to the design of it, I think that's where we fell short in its functionality. So,
my final question, I don't know if I can ask. We've seen instances in recent times of some police brutality. You can't deny that. What are your concerns? Because people are complaining almost on a daily basis. Is it something that you want to speak to?
Well, nobody is above the law. The only person, based on the Constitution, who is not subjected to the laws of Dominica is the President. That's the only person in the country who is not subjected to the laws until he or she demits office. So as long as the person is President, he is technically above the law. And therefore, no one in the country is above the law. Everybody has rights as provided for in the Constitution. Nowhere in the laws allow anybody to trample on anybody's rights, to brutalize anybody, to unlawfully detain anybody whatsoever. I would urge anybody who believe that they have been, their rights have been trampled upon by the police to bring the matter to the attention of the Chief of Police and the Attorney General of Dominica, and will give you the assurances that these matters will be properly investigated and so forth. And there's evidence to show that the Chief of Police has in fact taken action where cases of brutality has been brought to his attention. So there's evidence to this. By the same token, in defense of the police, we have to understand the police has a work to do, has a job to do. And the police will need to carry out its duties and to ensure that the state is secure. If the police is engaging you in a discussion and then you want to engage the police in a confrontation, then the police will have a right to protect himself and his colleagues who are out on duty. So sometimes we say things of police brutality, but sometimes the police are already carrying out the duties. And I think it's important for us to allow the police to carry the duties, but always within the confines of the law. And if anybody in this country believes that his or her rights have been trampled upon and denied by the police, you have a recourse in law in Dominica, and I urge you to exercise that recourse. Matt, you have any other things?
I was about to say, Mr. Prime Minister, you read my mind, that if this continues, the alleged brutality of the police officer, it falls back on the taxpayers of the country to pay these large fines.
Well, you see, the same token, Matt, I don't think it is fair to make statements without substantiating those claims. If there are instances of police brutality, then it is important for the victim to declare that and to report it so that it can be investigated. So I have had instances where people have come to me to say that the police have treated them badly, and I've asked for this to be investigated. So my advice to them is that you need to make a report to the chief of police. And it is always better to make this report in writing. If you believe that the chief of police is not responding to your claim, then you need to draw it to the attention of the Attorney General. The Attorney General has a duty and obligation in law to protect the citizens of Dominica and to ensure that their rights are maintained and respected. And he has a duty to allow for an investigation in any cases of brutality reported to him by any citizen or resident in the country. But as a firm position of the government, we do not support or encourage police trampling on the rights of any citizen. But we also have to make the point, Matt, in the country, that sometimes what we call police brutality is not, we're not wanting the police to do its work. That people believe that they can break the law, they can block the streets, they can park where they want, they can insult who they want, they can say what they want, and when the police comes to intervene, they do not want the police to act. So you cannot deny somebody else a right and expect the police to sit by with his arms folded and allow you to do that. So each of us must also know what our rights, but also what our responsibilities. Because we having a right we don't have a right to trample on somebody else's right. And I think this is where the public is having an error. And I think the Office of Attorney General and maybe the Bar Association may need to engage themselves jointly or separately on public education. Because most times in Dominica, because we're an oral society, because of our heritage, we are storytellers, so we don't reference documents. We don't have a bibliography or references. We see what somebody, mon di mwen tan yodi, mad di, as the Q95, or mon kuye EPD. So you have all of these things. And when people call your program, for example, they call and say, Matt, the previous caller there, I agree with him. But if you ask him what the previous caller says, he can't tell you, But he just like to hear what the fellow say. But as to the substance of it, you don't have that. You get me, man?
Hold on. On that point, sir, I want to make the public and Dominica understands. You have made a promise for many years that you will come and listen to the people of Dominica on Q95. Yeah. When will you do that, sir?
I'll come. I want to come. We'll let us be and work on a date. The press secretary will on a date with you, and we come. I mean, we come engage in a discussion there. You call it the hot seat? Is hot seat?
I'll bring your team.
No, I don't bring. I can come alone. But if you insist, I have to bring somebody else with me. I'll bring somebody. Tell me who to bring. I'll bring the people to me. Okay. But there's no question really. I can't stop it myself too. I think once this thing is done in a respectful manner, mutually respectful manner, and there's no problem at all. Pose any question you want to me. I believe that I have been the most transparent and engaging Prime Minister in the history of Dominica. There's no other. And you put all of them together, they still can't beat me in terms of transparency and access. So I am open to this thing. There's nothing to hide. There's some national security matter I cannot share with the public, but other than that, anything can be asked of me. People ask me all kinds of things. People ask me what I had for breakfast this morning. Sometimes, we're out of concern. But thank you very much, folks. Let's go and prepare. That's the mantra for the next several hours in Dominica. God bless you. Thank you.